So, friends, a federal judge just reaffirmed that the Trump administration must return to the U.S. a man they unconstitutionally deported to El Salvador, and they must do it by 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 7th. And the judge added that the detention of this man by the Trump administration is, quote, wholly lawless. You know, frankly, that would make a good hashtag to describe the Trump administration more broadly, wouldn't it? Hashtag wholly lawless. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, federal court judge Paula Shinas ordered the Trump administration to return to the United States a young man they unlawfully, unconstitutionally deported to El Salvador. His name is Abrego Garcia. And the Trump administration on Saturday asked Judge Shinas to stay or pause her order. And now on Sunday, the judge has an answer for the DOJ. She said, no, comply with my deadline of returning Mr. Garcia to the U.S. by 11:59 p.m. on Monday. But Judge Shinas said a good bit more in her new 22-page ruling. What I want to do today is start with just a little bit of the new reporting, and then I want to read a few paragraphs from the judge's new order and ruling, because it will reveal a twist on this story. And it's a twist that didn't unfold in the courtroom. It's a twist that unfolded between the walls of the Department of Justice. But let's start with the new reporting. This from Politico. Headline, Judge reaffirms order to return Maryland man erroneously deported to El Salvador. And that story begins, a federal judge is sticking by her demand that the Trump administration seek the immediate return of a Maryland man erroneously sent to El Salvador, where he is being held in one of the most notoriously inhumane and dangerous prisons in the world. U.S. District Judge Paula Shinas rejected the Trump administration's entreaty to back off her Friday order, which requires the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia by Monday night. Now, friends, let's turn just briefly to the new opinion issued by Judge Shinas, and then we're going to talk about what happened at the Department of Justice as a result of what some of the DOJ lawyers said in court in the Garcia case. And friends, something bad has happened and is happening inside the walls of the Department of Justice. But first, Judge Shinas's new order. In the case of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, plaintiff, versus Kristi Noem, Secretary, United States Department of Homeland Security, memorandum opinion. In 2019, an immigration judge, acting under the authority delegated by the United States Attorney General and pursuant to powers vested by Congress, granted plaintiff Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia withholding of removal, thereby protecting him from return to his native country, El Salvador. Such protection bars the United States from sending a non-citizen to a country where, more likely than not, he would face persecution that risks his life or freedom. 6 years later, without legal notice, legal justification, or due process, officers from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, a sub-agency of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, put him on a plane bound for the Terrorism Confinement Center, CCOT, in El Salvador. Neither the United States nor El Salvador have told anyone why he was returned to the very country to which he cannot return, or why he is detained at CCOT. This quote from the DOJ lawyer who was arguing this case in court, Mr. Reuveni, quote, "We have nothing to say on the merits. We concede he should not have been removed to El Salvador." This quote from the court, the judge. What basis is he held? Why is he in CCOT of all places? And the DOJ lawyer, Mr. Reuveni, says, "I don't know. That information has not been given to me. I don't know." That silence is telling. As defendants, essentially the Trump administration, as defendants acknowledge they had no legal authority to arrest him, no justification to detain him, and no grounds to send him to El Salvador, let alone deliver him into one of the most dangerous prisons in the Western Hemisphere. Having confessed grievous error, the defendants now argue that this court lacks the power to hear the case, and they lack the power to order Abrego Garcia's return. For the following reasons, their jurisdictional arguments fail as a matter of law. Further, to avoid clear irreparable harm, and because equity and justice compels it, the court grants the narrowest, dare say only, relief warranted to order that defendants return Abrego Garcia to the United States. So friends, I read you those few paragraphs from the new ruling by Judge Shinis because I wanted you to hear the exchange between the DOJ lawyer who was arguing the case in court, Mr. Reuveni, and the judge. I mean, Mr. Reuveni was struggling to answer the judge's questions, and he was answering as honestly and candidly and accurately as he could, but he acknowledged he didn't have a lot of information that would help answer her questions. So when the judge wanted to know, why is Mr. Garcia being held in a prison in El Salvador, the DOJ lawyer, Mr. Reuveni, answered candidly, honestly. He said, "We have nothing to say on the merits. We concede he should not have been removed to El Salvador." And the judge said, "Well, what's the basis that he's being held? Why in CCOT of all places?" And Mr. Reuveni said, "I don't know. That information has not been given to me. I don't know." Friends, when you are an attorney at the Department of Justice, I was there for 24 years. First of all, you must answer truthfully, accurately, candidly, honestly. And if you don't know, indeed, if you are required to concede that the seizure of somebody was unlawful, the deportation was unconstitutional, and you have no good answer for why that person is being held in a prison in a foreign country, you must give those answers. You can't make stuff up. I wasn't going to say stuff there. You can't make things up. Sometimes the most important answer an attorney can give to a judge is, "Judge, I don't know." And usually you follow that up with, "Judge, I will endeavor to find out, and I will come back before this court, or I will author a pleading and file it with this court, trying to be responsive to the court's questions accurately, truthfully. But right now, Judge, I don't know. The Trump administration, the Department of Justice hasn't provided me that information." Indeed, there is no good information because this was lawless and unconstitutional, and Garcia shouldn't be in that prison in El Salvador for any number of reasons. So, Mr. Reuveni didn't have answers, and he couldn't have been expected to have good answers, lawful answers that would satisfy the judge, because Trump is acting in a wholly lawless way. So what do you think happened to DOJ Attorney Reuveni, who went in there and did the best he could under horrific circumstances because the Department of Justice leadership, Bondi and company, set him up? Well, here's what happened, friends. This from Reuters. U.S., meaning the Department of Justice, sidelines DOJ lawyer involved in deportation case, which judge calls wholly lawless. And that article begins, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Sunday a Justice Department attorney had been placed on leave after he failed to vigorously defend the government's handling of a man erroneously deported to El Salvador in what a U.S. judge called a wholly lawless detention. At a court hearing on Friday, Justice Department lawyer Erez Reuveni struggled to answer questions from the judge about the circumstances of Abrego Garcia's deportation. Reuveni said he had raised questions with U.S. officials about why the federal government could not bring back Abrego Garcia, but had received no satisfactory answer. He acknowledged what he called an absence of evidence justifying Abrego Garcia's detention and deportation. He just acknowledged the true state of affairs. Judge, I don't know. We don't have that information. I wasn't provided it. And I'm sure at some point in the hearing, he offered to supplement the record when he could get some answers to respond to the judge's questions. I can tell you in the ordinary course of business for 30 years as a federal prosecutor, that's what we do if we don't have information that we'd like to have, that maybe we should have. We promise the court we will provide it promptly. But friends, it wasn't only DOJ lawyer Mr. Reuveni who was punished, who took the fall here. Get this, as reported by Reuters. Bondi told Fox News Sunday that Reuveni was no longer actively working on the case or in the department. Quote, "It's a pending matter right now. He was put on administrative leave by Deputy U.S. Attorney Todd Blanche on Saturday," Bondi said. "You have to vigorously argue on behalf of your client." Reuveni's supervisor, August Flenche, was also placed on leave, ABC News reported. The Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the report. You know, friends, nothing is more corrosive to an organization than when your high supervisors, your top leadership, the AG and the deputy AG, don't have your back. Even worse than not having your back, they punish you when all you did was answer a judge's questions honestly, candidly, accurately, as you are ethically obliged to do. You know, I am maybe not the expert on leadership or supervision. I will say I supervised Army JAGs. When I was in the Army JAG Corps, I supervised lots and lots of federal homicide prosecutors when I was chief of homicide at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. And I think most of what I learned about leadership and supervision I learned in the Army. I also learned from my father. I learned from my high school football coach and my college football coach and great supervisors that I had the opportunity to work for both in the Army and at the Department of Justice. And here's what I know. The three most important rules of leadership: support your people, and support your people. Pam Bondi knows nothing about leadership. Instead, she points fingers. She blames her subordinates. She sidelines them. She sidelines their supervisors. You know, that seems to be the Trump administration's approach to everything. We don't like what all of these federal judges are doing. Impeach the judges. We don't like what our own lawyers are going into court and arguing, even though we're not providing them enough information to actually fully argue the case because we know we're doing wrong. So what do? You get rid of your own subordinates, the people that you are there to support. You're supposed to have their back, but instead you stab them in the back. And here is the thing, friends, don't despair about all of this. This is not sustainable. I've been saying for weeks now that Donald Trump and his flunkies and his sycophants and his lapdogs that he has surrounded himself with in his administration might believe they can fire their way through ethical DOJ lawyers. They can fire their way through ethical FBI special agents. They can fire their way through ethical military leadership. But they can't. Do you really think there are that many DOJ lawyers who will now willingly go into court and, make a bunch of bullshit arguments to the judge that Donald Trump wants them to make, knowing that Pam Bondi will stab them in the back in a minute? This is not sustainable. You can't fire your way through 2.1 million honest, ethical, hardworking public servants. This is not sustainable, and in the long run, this whole cabal will implode. Politically, it will implode, and the rule of law will rise again. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.